Hello, my name is Sharon Sarago, and I'm continuing on with our lessons regarding the punctuation on the SAT. We have just covered compound sentences and semicolons, colons, and dashes. So now we're going to get into some of the other aspects of punctuation that we're going to find. Today we'll be doing appositives, and we're going to see many ways how we can punctuate those correctly, and every one of these ways is going to be on your SAT test and on your ACT test. So let's get started and see what we can find. When we look at these appositives, we will see them both as single words and as a phrase. You must already know the definition of appositives. It is a noun that renames the noun that it follows. Let's look at this example. The actor Brad Pitt is coming to town next week. Now my appositive is Brad Pitt, and it is describing actor. So if I don't have the appositive, it's kind of hard for me to know which actor that I'm talking about. So from the very beginning, I want you to understand that appositives are sometimes necessary to identify precisely who we're talking about. Look at the second example. My brother Jerry is coming here later. This is my appositive. If I don't have that, I may not know which brother I'm talking about, especially if I have multiple brothers. Many times the appositive is critical to identify specifically who we're talking about, and sometimes it isn't. And that's what we have to learn to do today, is to make that decision, because that's going to determine where we put our commas in the sentence. If I turn this sentence around and I start with Brad Pitt, the actor's name, then I know who I'm talking about because I have his name. Now, the appositive still follows the definition. It is a noun that renames the noun it follows, so it comes afterwards. And now my sentence says Brad Pitt, the actor, is coming to town next week. My question is this: do I need to know that he's the actor in order to tell you that I'm talking about Brad Pitt? The answer to that question is no. If I have his name right here, then I don't need to know that he's the actor in order to identify that I'm talking about Brad Pitt. And that's all this is about. So if I don't need it for specific identification, I put commas around it. I set it off from the sentence. And when you do this to a phrase or to a single word, then you're telling your reader, interesting but not critical. You can take it out and you would still know exactly what you were talking about. So if I took this out, I would say Brad Pitt is coming to town next week. I know precisely what's going on. I know precisely who I'm talking about. And that's why it's not critical information. Let's look at the next one. Jerry, my brother, is coming here later. Your appositive is my brother. I'm talking about Jerry, and the question is, do I need this thing, my brother, in order to let you know that I'm talking about Jerry? No, I don't. My brother is just extraneous information, interesting but not necessary for identification. So I put commas around it to tell you that it's not critical for identification. That also means that I could take it out and I would still know exactly what I'm talking about. Jerry is coming here later. You know precisely who I'm talking about. If I just had said, my brother is coming here later, you would have said, which one? Do you understand? So we look at these appositives. We have several names for them. Some people call them restrictive and non-restrictive. Some people call them essential and non-essential. Others say necessary and not necessary. I'd just as soon you look at it and make a decision about whether or not it's necessary for identification purposes. And then you will be fine that way. So we need to be able to find these appositives and positive phrases. So let's try that. Number one, Mom finally convinced my friend Sarah to join us for dinner. Well, here's the appositive Sarah. Now you need to decide, do I need commas around that or not? No, because I've got a bunch of friends, and if I don't label her specifically, I would have no clue who I'm talking about. So no commas. Commas tell you it's not necessary. It's almost like putting parentheses around something, which we could just throw away. Number 2, the card Kelly sent, a poem about our friendship, will always have a special place in my heart. Here's your positive, and the question is, do I need that to identify specifically which card I'm talking about? It's the one that Kelly sent. She only sent one, and therefore I don't need this to tell me that it's Kelly's card that I'm talking about. And since I don't need it for identification purposes, I will put commas around it. Number 3, without Miss Gelrose, my English teacher, I would never have learned such good grammar. Here's your positive, my English teacher. And the question is, do I need it to identify who I'm talking about? I don't need it. I have her name. It was Miss Gelrose. And since I don't need it to identify specifically who I'm talking about, I can put commas around it. And the last one, my sister Babs is an actress who has starred in several movies. Well, consider that I've got 4 sisters. If I take this out, who am I talking about? I would have said my sister is an actress who has starred in several movies. And you would have said, which sister are you talking about? So since I need this to identify specifically which one I'm talking about, I certainly don't want to put commas around it and say that it's not necessary. So now let's see if we can make some decisions about these and decide on your own whether you would need to put commas around your appositive or not. So we found our kitten at Critter Cats, our local rescue center for felines. This is your appositive right here. And then you have to decide, do I need that information in order to be specific about who I'm talking about? Well, you found it at Critter Cats. That's pretty specific, isn't it? And so you wouldn't need it. Number 2, after I took my sister Melissa to her ballet class, I picked up Bob, my brother, from baseball practice. I see 2 of them here. I see Melissa is one appositive, and then I see my brother as another one. So let's do the first one. After I took my sister Melissa, do I need this for specific identification about which sister I'm talking about? I need it. I don't want to put commas around it. I need it. I've got 5 sisters. Then the second one, I picked up Bob. Do I need this appositive to tell you who I'm talking about? No. I know I'm talking about Bob. Okay. Number 3, Dad worked at the auto repair shop, Fix It Up, for several years before starting his own business. This is the name of the shop. That's our positive. Do I need this in order to know which auto shop I'm talking about? Well, in Dallas, Texas, we have a lot of those. So unless I know the name of the shop, I would have no clue what we were talking about. And since I need it for identification, I don't want to put commas around it. Number 4, because of the potential disruption to class, Mr. Jones, our principal, called a meeting of the staff. Here's your positive. The question is always going to be the same. Do I need that for specific identification? No, I don't. I already have his name. I know precisely who I'm talking about, and therefore I can separate it from the rest of the sentence with commas. So let's see how we can do with creating our own appositives. Now, the reason that we do this is so that you will be able to write better sentences. when you do take the SAT and the ACT, there is an essay attached to it, and they will be looking at your sentence structure. That's part of the rubric. They grade you on sentence variety. That means you cannot always have simple sentences. You have to have other things in there, like appositive phrases, like gerund phrases, like infinitive phrases. Many things have to be in there. And as we go through this program, we talk about them all. So let's see if we can join these two sentences, and in doing so, create an appositive phrase. So we've got Sally. We could make this into the appositive, and we would just simply say, Sally, my friend, is leaving town tomorrow. Put commas around it. Why? Because I have her name. I don't need to know that she's my friend in order to identify who I'm talking about. Number 2, my teacher is Miss Jones. She won the award. I could do this two different ways. I could say, my teacher, Miss Jones, won the award, in which case, I don't know which teacher I'm talking about unless I know her name, and therefore it would just be, my teacher, Miss Jones, won the award. Scratch the comma, that period out, but that's not going to be a comma. But if I wanted to start with Miss Jones, I could say, Miss Jones, comma, my teacher, comma, won the award. You can always do them two different ways. Number 3, Mr. Jackson won the award. He is the man wearing the blue suit. Well, you could do it either way, but let's make this one our appositive phrase, the man wearing the blue suit. Then if I start with Mr. Jackson, the man wearing the blue suit won the award, this is my appositive, and I would not need it because I have the man's name right here. Mr. Jackson, the man wearing the blue suit, and then go back up here to won the award. Number 4, the albatross hung around his neck. The albatross is a large web-footed seabird. Most people know what an albatross is. So if I say the word albatross, they're already going to know that it is a large web-footed seabird. Therefore, this would not be necessary because I already have the name here, the albatross, and I would have to put commas around that appositive phrase. So regardless of whether you're writing them yourself or whether you're looking at it on a test question, the question that you have to ask yourself is always going to be the same. Do I need this appositive or this appositive phrase for specific identification? Now we get to look at another aspect of appositives, and it uses a different form of punctuation. It actually can use a colon with it. So if your appositive happens to be at the end of the sentence, now this is the critical part. If the appositive is at the end of the sentence, then it is okay to use a colon. Let's look. She had only one thing on her mind, marriage. Here is our appositive. It is a noun. It renames the noun it follows. And since it's at the end of the sentence, we can use a colon. You could have put a comma. You could have put a dash, but it's okay to put a colon too. Next, he had only one task to accomplish, getting to the church on time. Here's your appositive. It's a gerund, which is still a noun. He had only one task to accomplish, and since this appositive is at the end of the sentence, it's okay to use a colon. Number 3, he was always preoccupied with that one subject, math. Appositive at the end of the sentence, okay to use a colon. This is most assuredly on your test. They put it there because they know that students have not had this in their English classes. So be sure to watch for it. Let's see if we can figure out how to use colons with appositives in various situations. Jason's favorite holiday is quite predictable. Christmas, colon, right? Because our appositive is at the end of the sentence. The couple had only true interest. We left out a word. The couple had only one. There we go. The couple had only one true interest, reading best-selling novels. That would be our appositive. That's what the interest was. It's at the end of the sentence, and so we'll put a colon there. Our class was most impressed by these two authors, Dickinson and Poe. Well, this looks like a list, and I know that you've been taught how to do that. You can put a colon in front of a list as long as you have a complete sentence first. But here is our appositive. Number 4, the detective was preoccupied with one clue, the DNA of the suspect. Here it is, the DNA of the suspect. That's our appositive. It's at the end of the sentence, and therefore we can put a colon. Now, in your materials, you will find more examples of this. So I need you to practice it enough times so that it becomes second nature for you. You also know that in your packet, in your book, after every section, you will always have a test-taking practice. And this is one of the most critical aspects of your materials because it's cumulative. That means that when we get here, even though we were studying about appositives, your questions here could be over subject-verb agreement, they could be over pronoun usage, they could be over construction of compound sentences. Everything that we have studied before this can be on this test. And if you don't continually test over those concepts, you will forget them. And that's why this is so important. Let's start with number 1. Mr. Hamilton, a writer of unequal skill, he has published innumerable books about the habits of sea turtles, an endangered species. Well, I see an appositive here, a writer of unequal skill, so let's see if that's correct. We don't need it. We have his name. There are commas there, so we're okay with that. Then he has published innumerable books about the habits of the sea turtle, an endangered species. Here's another appositive. It is at the end of the sentence, so the colon is correct there. But this thing right here is kind of odd, don't you think? If this is an appositive that I don't need, let's scratch it out for a second and read this sentence without it. Mr. Hamilton, he has published. That's just like saying a subject and another subject at the same time. We can't have that. You don't repeat this word. You just get one subject. Mr. Hamilton has published innumerable books about the habits. So B was our answer right there. Number 2, we were told that neither the man in the gray suit or the woman in the red dress would be able to attend the party taking place in July. Well, this might look like an appositive right here, but it isn't. It's a participial phrase. And it is correct as it is. So we've got neither the man, there's not anything to tell about that, it's correct. The man in the gray suit or, oh, I see a problem. Look at this. Neither goes with nor. It does not go with or. So the conjunction is neither nor and then either or. You'll have to watch for this. They're very tricky on the test and they will do this to you. Put neither paired with or. That's not right. It has to be neither goes with nor. All right, so we have another B there. Number 3, listening to our candidates as each gives their own speeches. Well, I already see the mistake there. There's a pronoun problem. Look at this. This pronoun here has an antecedent. And you know that every time you find a pronoun, you have to look for the antecedent. Here, it's each. Each one of these people is giving a speech. But each is singular. Remember, you memorized that. Each, either, neither, one. And since it is singular, you are obligated to have a singular pronoun. So it cannot be their, it would have to be his. And so A is our answer here. All right, I encourage you to continue to look at those and study them. If you have any questions about them, then contact me. So that's all that there is to know about appositives and appositive phrases that's going to be on the SAT test. You might need to go back through this video a couple of times to be sure that you understand all those concepts and that you remember them. And then, of course, you need to go ahead and finish all the exercises in your book. There are plenty of exercises in your book that are not on this video. And the only way that you're going to remember all of this stuff is to practice and review, practice and review. So until our next video, I will wish you good luck in your studies, and I'm certain that if you continue to work, you will be very successful.